Okay, so let's look at another example. In this one, you see we have a fraction, but we have power rule in the top, right? So because we have that cube, so we have to do a power rule first, right, in an order of operations, and then we're going to have some quotient rule, aren't we? Okay, so again, just a reminder that with the power rule, you want to multiply exponents. So our first step will be to take x to the 2/3 and multiply that by the cube, right, which is 3 over 1. And then we're going to take the y to the 4 and multiply that by the 3, because we're cubing that as well. So in other words, you're taking this outer exponent and you're going to raise each of these to the 3rd power, which in essence means multiply the exponents, keep the base, right? So doing that first. And here, the 2/3 times 3 over 1, well, as you know, we can multiply across and get a 6/3, or we could just reduce common factors, and this 3 goes into itself once and into itself once here. So here we will have x squared, right? And then here we have y to the 12th. So our numerator looks like this. It's got x squared, y 12. Okay, now I'm going to just take this denominator because we haven't changed it, and just rewrite it under here. Okay, so we have x to the 1/12, y to the 5/2. Okay, so now it's time for us to do our quotient rule, right? Which means that we're going to subtract exponents. We've got the x's and we have the y's, and we do need, because we are going to subtract these exponents, so we have these two, right? And then we have these two. So the x to the 2, that's a 2 over 1. And then there we have an x to the 1/12. And the bigger exponent is here, right? So we're going to use quotient rule, as you know, and which means we're going to subtract these exponent, and the bigger exponent is the x squared, isn't it? So we're going to subtract this 1/12 from the x squared. So we have x to the 2 over 1 minus 1/12. And as you know, we need a common denominator, which will be 12. So I'm going to show you with a new color, right? So we're going to multiply this one by, we're going to do times 12 and times 12 here, right? And so that's going to give us x to the 24 12s minus 1/12, which is x to the 23 12s. In the numerator, we now have x to the 23 12s. Those are my x's, x to the 23 12s. Now here I have the y. So the y is 12 over 1, y to the 12, 12 over 1, divided by y to the 5/2. And again, you know this is 2.5, right? You know this is 2.5, but so this one's definitely bigger. So we're going to subtract here. So change that denominator. Okay, while I'm here, let's just do that. And our common denominator here is 2, so I'm going to multiply top and bottom here by 2. So this guy here is y to the 24/2, and I'm going to subtract the exponent 5/2 since we are dividing, right? Quotient rule. And 24 minus 5 is 19. So my final answer is bring the x down, x to the 23 12ths, y to the 19 halves. Awesome. That's your answer. Okay, let's go to the next example. All right, so here we have some product rules. We have some negative exponents, and we have this power rule here, right? And so we're definitely going to have to evaluate the power rule portion first. So power rule, right, this outer exponent, we're going to multiply exponents, as you know. And again, we don't need common denominators. But this, by the way, this square, this will only apply to the terms that are inside the parentheses, not to these other terms that are in front. Let's just do that portion. X to the negative 1/3 times 2 over 1, y to the 7/2 times 2 over 1. So we're squaring. with power rule, and we're going to multiply straight across. So we have x to the negative 2/3, y to the, oh, look at this. The 2's are going to reduce, common factor, so y7, y to the 7. Okay, so here's what we've got so far. The x to the minus 4 from before, the y to the minus 1, because those were already there, right? Now we have the x to the negative 2/3 and the y to the 7th from our power rule, all over x to the 1/6 y cubed. There's some product rule we can do here, right? We can add exponents, the ones that have the same base, right? So the y's are easy, right? The y's are easy. Y to the negative 1 times y to the 7th. If you add those two exponents, that's a y to the 6. So we have y to the 6. Now we have this x to the negative 4 over 1. And now we need a common denominator, right? We're going to do these two x's right here. And so let's see, we need a new color, don't we? Boom. Denominator's 3. Changing those, that's a negative 12/3 here. And then this x has a negative 2/3 exponent. Add those two exponents, they're both negative. So we're going to write x to the negative 14/3. Below we have our original x to the 1/6 and our y cubed. So now we have quotient rule with the x's and the y's. And we're going to subtract exponents, and this one's easy, right? So the bigger exponent is here. Subtract up, so that's y cubed. But now look at this guy. This is a negative. So we are going to bring this one down. Okay, so x to the 1/6 minus, subtract a negative 14/3, right? So if you want to subtract, or the other way to think about this is that when you bring this term, the green term here, right, down to the denominator, your exponents will be positive because it's a reciprocal, right? So either way, you're going to get this. You got to do this addition here. So we have to change denominators again. Times 2 times 2, that's 28. Here's what we got. We've got y cubed. Let me put it over here. Y cubed from the top. X to the 28 plus 1. 29/6. Did you follow all that? Okay, so I almost forgot. Actually, I did forget, and then I had to come back and do the rest of the video. That we had this exponent up here. Remember that? Oh, oops. So remember this exponent, the negative 7/3. So we have to take our answer, which is 1 over x to the 11/4 y to the 7/10, and raise it to the negative 7/3. And given that our base is a fraction, right? And that this outer exponent is negative, which means that we are going to take the reciprocal of this base. Let's do that right now. So again, a reminder, an outer negative exponent like this negative 7/3, we can rewrite the base with its reciprocal, which basically means flip it, right? And then this will change this negative to a positive 7/3. So base, reciprocal, and then opposite sign on the exponent. Opposite sign on the exponent, right? Okay, so that would be, so 1 over x to the 11/4 y 7/10, its reciprocal would be x to the 11/4 y 7/10 over 1, which is just this, right? And then again, our negative 7/3 outer exponent becomes a positive 7/3 outer exponent. So now we use the power rule, right? The power rule, which means multiply exponents. And so this, we multiply the 7/3 times both of these exponents, multiply across because they're fractions, don't need a common denominator. X to the 77/12 y to the 49/30. Okay, that's the answer that I almost forgot to give you. All right.